एंड ऑल्सो व्हाट इज़ इट वी आर फाइटिंग फॉर, हम किस चीज़ के लिए लड़ रहे हैं। स्कंद पुराण में ही शिव जी बताते हैं कि जो भी व्यक्ति यहाँ अपना शरीर त्यागता है, जैसे ही शरीर से आत्मा बाहर आती है, विश्वनाथ खुद आके उस आत्मा के कान में तारक राम मंत्र की दीक्षा देते हैं, जिससे उस आत्मा को मोक्ष की प्राप्ति होती है। एटर्नल क्रिमेशन ग्राउंड मणिकर्णिका घाट में 24/7 × 365 देर आप चिताएँ जलती रहती हैं। उन्होंने एक चीज़ बोला विच वॉज वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट, दैट शिवलिंग का मतलब ही क्या है, कंकड़ कंकड़ में शंकर। वाइल अयोध्या के बारे में लोगों को काफ़ी जानकारी है, अलग अलग अनएक्सपेक्टेड हेल्प स्टार्टेड कमिंग फ्रॉम डिफरेंट प्लेसेस, एंड सो इट वाज आल्सो कॉल्ड रुद्रवास, जहाँ रुद्र का वास होता है।
हाय नमस्कार, मेरा नाम है अर्जुन सिंह एंड वेलकम टू अनदर पॉडकास्ट एट द पैम्फलेट। आई हैव द गुड फॉर्चून ऑफ वेलकमिंग माय फ्रेंड टुडे। फ्रेंड तो क्या, मतलब एज अ मेंटर ऑल्सो। ही इज़ बीन वेरी सपोर्टिव एंड आई हैव हैड द फॉर्चून ऑफ सीइंग बोथ हिज प्रोफेशनल एंड पर्सनल जर्नी। Dr. Vikram Sampath, who's a best-selling author, and he's recently come out with this book, Waiting for Shiva: Unearthing the Truth of Kashi's Gyanvapi. Vikram, thank you very much for joining me here.
Thank you, Arjun. It seems a very different experience being with you on camera. Always been off camera, right?
Longer conversations off camera, and in fact, we've had the good fortune of speaking about so many different topics. And it's post 2014 essentially. I've seen you suffer, also go through a lot, be it Bangalore Literature Festival or anything else for that matter. So, well, yes, indeed, a happy moment.
Not just post 2014, Arjun. I think it's the 16th year of my literary career. So 2008 was when my first book, Splendors of Royal Mysore, came out, and since then, it's not just now. People don't know. Even 2008, I remember there was an occasion when I was just giving a talk somewhere in Bangalore, and this was on the interregnum period of Hyder Ali and Tipu Sultan, and suddenly there was the whole audience mein kuch log, they just got very excited, they started throwing paper rockets, the meeting was disrupted, and someone came up to my dad, who was sitting in the first row, and said, "You have an only son, if you want him to live long, please ask him to mind his zippet a bit." And I was probably in my late 20s then, very much naive to the sharks that are there in the battlefield here. So since then it has been a continuous journey of a lot of struggle, at the same time a lot of love, affection and appreciation from readers, but alongside a lot of brickbats, and that is, I think, obvious, because anybody who's trying to challenge the status quo that has been established for so many decades, naturally उसमें थोड़ा तो pushback होगा ही.
And I think वही, because like I was saying ना, कि इसी तरह के challenges जो आए हैं, that is what I've seen for a long time that you've been facing.
Yeah.
How did this book come around? How did Waiting for Shiva happen for you?
This was serendipitous, happy accident जो हुआ. I was neck deep into a very big, long, story of Hyder Ali and Tipu Sultan जो मैं लिख रहा था. पर अचानक पौंडीचेरी लिट फेस्ट में मेरी मुलाकात एडवोकेट विष्णु शंकर जैन जी से हुई. तो एज़ यू नो, ही इज़ सो पैशनेट अबाउट व्हाट ही डज़. तो ऐसे ही कैजुअली बात करते करते उन्होंने बहुत सारे दस्तावेज़ मुझे दिखाए और बोले कि वाइल अयोध्या के बारे में लोगों को काफ़ी जानकारी है, आई थिंक थैंक्स टू दी मूवमेंट, अबाउट काशी एंड ज्ञानवापी, दो रोज़ न्यूज़पेपर्स में और चैनल्स में कुछ ना कुछ आता ही रहता है कि अदालतों में केसेस चल रहे हैं अभी भी. But people don't know so much about the history of the case itself, history of the temple, history of the case, and also what is it we are fighting for, हम किस चीज़ के लिए लड़ रहे हैं. तो ऐसे उन्होंने पूछा कि why don't you write maybe a series of articles or so to create that awareness among people. तो मैंने तो हाँ बोल दिया था, but as I got into the entire topic, I realized that it's a much wider discussion that needs to happen. And this is not just the legal history that he was asking me to look into, but I wanted to expand the scope of the subject itself. तो by chance, I think it was Mahadev's own कृपा जिसकी वजह से ये किताब आई कि और अलग अलग unexpected help started coming from different places. I was so fortunate that somehow, again by accident, I was blessed enough to make acquaintance with the Jagadguru Shankaracharya, Shri Abhinav Shankar Bharti ji of Kudali Sringeri Mahasamsthanam. So he probably realized that I'm writing a book like this. So he got in touch with me, and then I had the good fortune of being with him for long periods of time. And he's a scholar par excellence. तो उन्होंने काफ़ी चीज़ें मुझे समझाई, इंक्लूडिंग उन्होंने एक चीज़ बोला विच वॉज वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट, दैट शिवलिंग का मतलब ही क्या है वो भी हमें लिखने की ज़रूरत है, क्योंकि ड्यूरिंग इवन द एडवोकेट कमिश्नर सर्वे व्हेन द शिवलिंग केम आउट ऑफ द वजूखाना, लॉट ऑफ पीपल मेड फन कि ये तो फैलस वर्शिप है, मेल ऑर्गन एंड दिस एंड दैट, विच इज़ हाउ द वेस्टर्नर्स लुक एट इट. तो आई थिंक शंकराचार्य जी का ये मानना था कि थ्रू दिस डोंट हैव टू गेट इनटू द entire esoteric meaning, but you give a idea as to what the meaning of that is, and also what do the Agam Shastras talk about the importance of the place, the exact location, why is that important in the Hindu imagination. तो ये सारी चीज़ें. और another thing that I always believe in कि हमारा जो इतिहास है वो अलग अलग भाषाओं में लिखा है, अंग्रेजी में तो बिल्कुल लिखा नहीं गया है. तो संस्कृत हो, पाली, प्राकृत, क्लासिकल लैंग्वेजेस, सेन तमिल वगैरह, तो उसको आई मीन एज अ मॉडर्न हिस्टोरियन आई मे नॉट बी एबल टू अंडरस्टैंड ऑल दोज लैंग्वेजेस डायरेक्टली एंड completely myself, but rather than rely on translations by particularly Westerners who either have a bias or they have incomplete knowledge, it's better to access the primary sources in the original with the help of scholars who know that language.
Absolutely.
So Shankaracharya ji also introduced me to a couple of Sanskrit scholars in Bangalore, Professor Kannan, Dr. Meera, who helped me decode and translate a lot of the Sanskrit literature. So I referred extensively to the Puranic literature, Shiva Puran, Linga Puran, Brahma Vaivarta Puran, Skanda Puran, Vayu Puran, the entire Puranic literature. A lot of Sanskrit nibandhas were written. So Kashi Mahatmya, जो eulogies to Kashi that were written over various time periods. 11th century में लक्ष्मीधर नाम का एक courtier in the Gahadwal, गोविंद चंद्रा उनके कोर्ट में थे. तो he had written Kritya Kalpataru. So, and then 1460 there was another scholar called Vachaspati Mishra who wrote Tirtha Chintamani. Then 1550-1560 के करीब you had Narayan Bhatt, the celebrated Sanskrit Pandit, who also got the Vishwanath Mandir constructed. He wrote Tristhali Setu on 3 major pilgrim centers, जिसमें काशी का बहुत बड़ा महत्व था उसमें. और उनके तुरंत बाद मित्र मिश्रा नाम के एक आदमी ने तीर्थ प्रकाश नाम का एक किताब लिखा. तो इस सब में काशी का वर्णन था, काशी का महत्व के बारे में वर्णन था, और विश्वनाथ मंदिर के बारे में विस्तार से उन्होंने बताया था. और साथ ही साथ देयर वर लॉट ऑफ पर्शियन अकाउंट्स दैट वर देयर, मिनहाज सिराज, फरिश्ता, हसन निज़ामी, अल-बरूनी, इब्न बटूटा, ये सारे लोग जब काशी आए तो उनके क्या विचार थे इसके बारे में. Then lot of travelers, foreign travelers. There was a French traveler called Jean-Baptiste Tavernier, Peter Mundy, a British factor, the Venetian traveler Niccolo Manucci. तो उनके सारे travelogues and accounts, Maratha history, Peshwa Daftar के documents about why this place was so significant for the Marathas right from the times of Chhatrapati Shivaji Maharaj. And then the legal contestations. So that was what started from the legal, this was the last part of a larger edifice. And right from the, British period, colonial records that were there, archival papers and the court documents, the place was always under contestation. And रेगुलरली अदालतों में, ब्रिटिश अदालतों में केस दर्ज होते ही आ रहे थे. तो उन सब का दस्तावेज बोथ pre-independence and then post-independence जो हुआ to the latest times. The 2 suits that were filed, one in 1991 and the other in 2021, which Hari Shankar ji and Vishnu ji are fighting with their team, leading up to the present days, 1 month back with the ASI survey report that came out. Now the best part is I think the matter goes so fast, while by the time the book went to print already वो व्यास जी का तहखाना खुल गया था और पूजा शुरू हो गई थी. So I was like wondering, my God, every second edition I might have to make a lot of changes because Mahadev is in a hurry now. I think Ram Lalla ke baad he's like feeling FOMO that I need to I need to start working hard too, or Krishna ji will not be too far behind.
Too far behind. Keeping our fingers crossed there. I'm glad you made a mention of Lingas and Kashi's historicity. तो शहर कितना पुराना है, काशी जगह कितनी पुरानी है, काशी के अंदर जो लिंग की स्थापना है उसकी क्या ओवरऑल एक बहुत मेजर रिलीजियस सिग्निफिकेंस है? Why don't you tell us a bit about it?
So Kashi, I mean, even people like Mark Twain, the American novelist, or missionary accounts, they say it's the oldest city in the world, oldest living city in the world. 5,000, 6,000, we never know. And many people have written very evocatively, much before Rome and Byzantine and all the other Greek empires were there. This city was still thriving. And it was not only a center of spirituality, it was also a thriving center of commerce. And commercial activity and business, बहुत सारे व्यापारी थे वहाँ पे, and it was a very significant melting pot of almost all the Indic faiths, not only हिंदू धर्म या सनातन धर्म, और हिंदू धर्म के भी सारे जो पंथ थे वो यहाँ पे it was a melting pot for that. It was initially considered to be an important city for भगवान विष्णु, and then विष्णु जी उसको सुपुर्द कर देते हैं शिव जी को according to the Puranic belief, and then it becomes शिव की नगरी. And शिव जी खुद इसको अलग अलग तरीके से स्कंद पुराण में इसका वर्णन करते हैं. He's so enamored by the beauty of the place that he assures Parvati ji that I will never abandon this place. मैं इस शहर को छोड़ के कभी नहीं जाऊंगा. तो इसीलिए शहर का नाम भी अविमुक्त क्षेत्र बन गया. और इसके भी दो मीनिंग्स हैं. एक तो मैं द नेवर अबैंडन्ड सिटी, द अदर इज जहाँ मुक्ति का गारंटी है. एंड स्कंद पुराण में ही शिव जी बताते हैं कि जो भी व्यक्ति यहाँ अपना शरीर त्यागता है, जैसे ही शरीर से आत्मा बाहर आती है, विश्वनाथ खुद आके उस आत्मा के कान में तारक राम मंत्र की दीक्षा देते हैं, जिससे उस आत्मा को मोक्ष की प्राप्ति होती है. सो इट इज़ अ प्लेस ऑफ अश्योर्ड salvation or mukti, and mukti, nirvana, liberation, that has been the main goal for all the Indic faiths, whether it's Buddhism, Jainism, Hinduism and so on. So that was one important thing, and since it was so beautiful, it was also called Anandavan, Anand Kanan, a forest of bliss where all the animals, there's no enmity. The lion and the deer are having water together in the same, the dog and the cat, there's no fight between them. Everyone, the snake and the mongoose are in harmony with each other. That was the Puranic conception of Kashi. I don't know how true that would be. And the other thing, वहाँ पे every stone, कंकड़ में शंकर जैसे बोला जाता है, every place was pulsating with the presence of Bhagwan Shiv, and so it was also called Rudravas, जहाँ रुद्र का वास होता है. And the other important element of Kashi was it was also called, the name of the city was also called Mahasmashan, probably one of the few places where death is not considered something impure, inauspicious, not holy. It's a part of life, it's an inevitable truth of life, and so it's a eternal cremation ground. Manikarnika Ghat में 24/7 into 365 there are चिताएं जलती रहती हैं, and people understand that. You do the Vishwanath Puja, you come near the ghat, you see some pyre burning all the time there. So since time immemorial, therefore, this was something that was so important, not only for Sanatan Dharma, for the Hindu faith, but it was, as I said, वैष्णव, शैव और शाक्त संप्रदायों के साथ साथ बौद्ध और जैन संप्रदायों के लिए भी ये इट वॉज अ वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट साइट. जैन तीर्थंकर यहाँ आए थे, महावीर जी यहाँ आए थे, एंड गौतम बुद्धा ने अपना पहला जो सरमन था वो यहाँ पे ही सारनाथ में दिया था, वेयर ही हैड द फर्स्ट 5 disciples whom he took on to his side, and वहाँ से the diversion went to various emissaries to different countries. And by then Maurya साम्राज्य जो स्थापित हुआ with Ashoka and others, that gave a further fillip to the importance of Buddhism. So it's been a melting pot of so many different sects within Sanatan Dharma, Bauddha, Jain, Hindu. और हिंदू में as I said, Vaishnav, Shaiv, Shakt, Sare Sampradaya, they were living in harmony. And the fact that, they were actually living in harmony is also attested by the details that 7th century में जब ह्यून सांग आए थे, Chinese Buddhist pilgrim, he clearly mentions that around Sarnath, hundreds and hundreds of stupas और viharas वो सब थे जहाँ बुद्ध की पूजा होती थी, बड़े बड़े बुद्ध की मूर्तियाँ थी, some were स्वर्ण मंडित मूर्तियाँ भी थी. पर he said the main city is of non-believers of the Buddha, which were, and the main principal deity was Mahadev. And he also talks of a principal temple in the city which is on a high mound, जिसमें एक 100 feet statue उन्होंने देखा था, जिसका वर्णन 7th century में वो करते हैं, that this was what was worshipped by everybody. And Gahadwal जो किंग राजा थे 11th century में, गोविंद चंद्रा, see the beauty that he was a Vaishnav in his orientation. Bindu Madhav and several other विष्णु के मंदिर उन्होंने पेट्रनाइज किए थे, बट देन ही वॉज ऑल्सो इक्वली पेट्रनाइजिंग ऑफ ऑब्वियसली विश्वेश्वर, अविमुक्तेश्वर और बहुत सारे और जो डेटीज इन काशी ऑफ भगवान शिव, बट बोथ हिज वाइव्स वर बुद्धिस्ट, एंड सो फैमिली डिस्कॉर्ड तो हुआ नहीं. हस्बैंड वॉज वैष्णव हु patronized Shaiva, and his wives were Buddhist. And they, one of the wives has an inscription also where she praises her husband, saying he's such a brave man, because by then the Turks had started attacking different parts of North India. So I think the Gahadwal understood how to tackle this. So they started levying something called a Turushka Danda, which is a tax to create a standing army to defeat the Turks. So people were paying, it was crowdfunding of resources to maintain a standing militia. And this wife of his, who's a Buddhist, says, my husband has understood that this is the only strategy to keep the Turks at bay. Ghazni ho, Ghori ho, all these people who had started marauding North India by then. So it's a very, it's a fascinating melting pot of so many cultures, and that's what makes, I think, Kashi the soul of Bharatiya civilization, Samhyata, and a microcosm of India. You, I think, find a little bit of every part of India there, which over periods of time of a long and troubled history, every region of India wanted to leave a little bit of an imprint. तो मैसूर का महाराजा हो या त्रावणकोर का महाराजा हो या मराठा तो है, आज का जो काशी है, it's all Maratha creation of the 18th century, because nothing pre that ever exists there. So every part of India had a making in the reconstruction, the renaissance and the reclaiming of Kashi, and particularly the Vishwanath Mandir.
Lovely. We'll get to it in some time, but usse pehle, like you had mentioned, अपने शिव भक्ति के लिए क्यों इतना इम्पोर्टेंट है काशी या काशी विश्वनाथ मंदिर? You made a mention of Vishweshwara, you made a mention of different deities of Shiva. Why don't you tell us a bit about that as well?
Yeah. So as we all know, 12 ज्योतिर्लिंग हैं हमारे, उसमें विश्वेश्वर is one of the important ज्योतिर्लिंगस, and it is believed कि ये स्वयंभू लिंग है, वो खुद अपने आप वहाँ उनका आविर्भाव हुआ. पर शिव जी खुद अपने इसमें स्कंद पुराण में पार्वती जी से कहते हैं कि यहाँ देर आर बिलियंस एंड बिलियंस ऑफ लिंगास विच आर ऑल माई मैनिफेस्टेशन, पर एक लिंगात्मक स्वरूप वो बनाते हैं, लाइक अ ह्यूमन एनाटमी, and then transcribes that to Kashi's geography. And he says the head is represented by one linga, Trilochan is the eyes, ओमकारेश्वर, केदारेश्वर, बहुत सारे ऐसे 14 प्रमुख लिंग जो हैं वहाँ. मध्यमेश्वर इज द नेवल, शुक्रेश्वर, बहुत सारे ऐसे लिंगास. और उसमें ये भी कहा गया कि द 2 right hands of this लिंगात्मक स्वरूप is Vishweshwar and Avimukteshwar. So these were, I think, the 2 principal लिंगास. अविमुक्तेश्वर का जो महत्व है वो धीरे धीरे गौण होता गया, but I think at some point that was the more principal deity. But Vishweshwar has been the reigning god for almost 1000 years now, which is a long enough time. But स्कंद पुराण में एक और श्लोक ये भी आता है कि the whole world worships Vishweshwar बट विश्वेश्वर वर्शिप्स अविमुक्तेश्वर, तो वो विश्वेश्वर के भी गुरु हैं, वो सीनियर लिंगा हैं, एंड दैट वाज हाउ इट वाज ऑलवेज कंसेप्चुलाइज्ड. एंड आई थिंक अविमुक्तेश्वर का ये भी है कि मे बी इट वाज फॉर द एलीट एंड फॉर द अपर कास्ट एंड सो ऑन, बट विश्वेश्वर वाज मोर ऑफ अ डेमोक्रेटिक पॉपुलर डेटी. उनको स्पर्श दोष नहीं था. एवरीबडी कुड गो एंड टच द लिंगा एज वी कैन नाउ. खुद अपने हाथों से उनको जलाभिषेक रुद्राभिषेक करा सकते हैं. तो शायद ये भी एक कारण था कि विथ टाइम ही बिकेम मोर पॉपुलर, दैट पर्टिकुलर डेटी. एंड अविमुक्तेश्वर का महत्व धीरे धीरे कम होता गया. एंड दीज आइकोनोक्लास्टिक वेव्स ऑफ ब्रेकिंग ऑफ दीज टेम्पल्स.
हाँ, सो एग्जैक्टली हैविंग एस्टैब्लिश्ड कि काशी की क्या इंपॉर्टेंस थी, हैविंग एस्टैब्लिश्ड शिव भक्ति के लिए क्यों इतना ज़रूरी है काशी, इट इज़ इम्पोर्टेंट नाउ टू लेट्स टेक दिस कॉन्वर्सेशन इन डायरेक्शन कि 7th सेंचुरी जब इस्लाम एज अ फेथ एस्टैब्लिश हुआ एंड कैसे दिस लैंड ऑफ इंडिक सिविलाइजेशन एंडेड अप बिकमिंग अ बैटल ग्राउंड ऑफ सिविलाइजेशन. व्हाट बिगैन हैपनिंग पोस्ट 7th-8th सेंचुरी AD? कैसे काशी बिकेम अ ग्राउंड जिसमें बार बार ऑनस्लॉट्स होते रहे फेथ के नाम पर, धर्म के नाम पर?
I think the first, though aborted attempts that happened to attack Kashi was in the early 11th century, which was Ahmad Nialtagin, वो महमूद गजनी का कोषाध्यक्ष ट्रेजरर था. वो एक आधे दिन के लिए समथिंग ही कम्स टू काशी टू ट्राई टू demolish the temples and so on, but something else draws his attention and he has to go away. थोड़ा लूटपाट करके वो चला जाता है नियाल्तगिन पर. और कुछ ही साल बाद आफ्टर महमूद गजनीज डेथ सलार मसूद आता है. और सलार मसूद अपना जो सेनापति है मोहम्मद अलावी, he sent him towards वाराणसी and he tries to come towards the rest of उत्तर प्रदेश. और उसको एज वी नो सुहेल देव बैटल ऑफ बहरेच में सलार मसूद को मार देता है एंड ही इज स्टिल रेवियर्ड एज गाजी बाबा. एंड अलावी भी जब वाराणसी आता है तो ही इज किल्ड.
There's a place also
अलावीपुरा. अलावीपुरा इन वाराणसी आज भी है जहाँ लोग रहते हैं. We commemorate all these great marauders who came. गाजी बाबा हैं वो. तो बाबा विश्वनाथ के शहर को अटैक करने वाले गाजी बाबा हैं जिनकी आज भी पूजा होती है. तो बट whatever. So these two attempts went in vain and Kashi was saved. And part of that credit to that also goes to the Gahadwal kings whom I mentioned. Because उस समय तक आप देखें तो नॉर्थ इंडिया में जो डायनेस्टीज थे, द गुर्जर प्रतिहारास, उनका पावर एंड इम्पोर्टेंस जैसे जैसे कम होता गया. देयर वर न्यूमरस अदर्स, द परमारास, जो भोज भोपाल में राजा भोज, कलाचुरीज, ये सारे लोग अपने आप में दे वर फाइटिंग विद ईच अदर. बट द गहदवाल्स एस्टैब्लिश्ड देमसेल्व्स एज द प्रिंसिपल पावर. दे हैड लॉट ऑफ फ्यूडिटरीज विच इंक्लूडेड द चहमानास, चौहान, जो पृथ्वीराज चौहान वगैरह. एंड दे क्रिएटेड अ कंसेंट्रिक सर्कल्स ऑफ like a buffer around Kashi, which they made their capital. Kannauj था उनका capital पहले. Kannauj से shift करके Kashi was made the political capital. And after centuries, I think Kashi's political importance came back. Because पहले तो politically also it was important, in addition to being a spiritual and a commercial center. But during the time of the Shodasha Mahajanapadas, you had a lot of fights between मगध, कौशल, और उसमें काशी का महत्व धीरे धीरे कम होता गया.
But Kashi was an important.
It was one of the Shodasha Mahajanpadas, the 16 Janpadas.
So उस time पर it was politically important and then
during the Gahadwal time.
फिर उसके बाद तब आया.
During Gahadwal time when they made this their capital. और they had a beautiful, as I said, वो तुरुष्क दंड भी उन्होंने शुरू किया. And they fortified the city and kept it protected, preserved. And then lot of patronage to all these temples, particularly of Vishweshwar. But the attack that happened in 1194 by Kutubuddin Aibak, and that time Jayachandra was the king of Kashi. And just 2 years before, you had the Battle of Tarain, where Prithviraj Chauhan had also been defeated. After that, the Gahadwal Empire was completely annihilated. Kashi was broken down to the last brick. And Hasan Nizami, one of the chroniclers of the time, says close to 1,000 temples were destroyed in that one attack by Kutubuddin Aibak. And the amount of wealth that was there was carried away on 13 camels and 300 elephants. तो आप सोच सकते हैं कितना वहाँ धन था, कितना इट वाज सच अ प्रॉस्परस एंड थ्राइविंग सिटी ऑफ द नॉर्थ.
इट्स इंटरेस्टिंग क्योंकि उसी टाइम पर हम सोमनाथ की भी बात कर रहे थे.
Yes, that was 1025. This is 1194. So almost for 200 years के अंतराल के
बीच में. But consciously would you argue कि हिस्ट्री ने या फिर हिंदू कॉन्शियस ने इस बात को अपने दिमाग में रखा कितनी इम्पोर्टेंस थी काशी की?
बिल्कुल. So that was that's the story of resilience. So in this book I don't think it's just a story of सॉब स्टोरी कि ये आए, इन्होंने तोड़ा, इसको तोड़ा. दैट इज ऑफ कोर्स देयर, दैट इज वन थ्रेड दैट गोज where you feel the angst and the grief about the constant destructions. but उसका पैरेलल एक ट्रैक है जो रेजिलियंस का है कि इन सब आतताइयों के आने और ध्वंस करने के बावजूद the Hindus of Kashi never gave up on the shrines.
Why don't you tell us that story? क्योंकि ये we've argued also and discussed multiple times that our history has been written in a way कि हम ये battle हारे. Rather वो battle हारे, we reconstructed and rebuilt the temples which you've exactly shown remarkably in the book also.
Correct.
Why don't you tell us a bit?
Yes, and so उसमें एक और चीज़ भी जुड़ जाता है. Not only the fact that we are not a nation of losers, we kept having that Kshatra spirit to come back into the fore, but also the fact that आज जहाँ उत्तर दक्षिण में अंतर दिखा के north is different, south is a different country and all that is shown unfortunately. In this story you see that in काशी के पुनरुत्थान में सिर्फ उत्तर भारत के लोग नहीं बल्कि पूरे भारत के लोगों ने योगदान दिया. 1194 में कुतुबुद्दीन ऐबक के डिस्ट्रक्शन के बाद only about 16-17 years later 1212 में बंगाल का एक राजा, सेना वंश का राजा विश्वरूप, he comes to Kashi and he erects a Vijay Sthamb there right in the heart of the city and says, marks it literally कि and copyright वहाँ पे कि this is the city of Vishweshwar. Of course it was the height of the Delhi Sultanate, so he could not get a grand temple constructed, but he was at least marking the location. A few decades later, 1240, 1230, this thing, though Razia Sultan by then had already come and built a Razia mosque, which is still there, which some people believe is the original site of Vishweshwar temple. A Gujarati businessman called Seth Vastupal, he gave close to ₹1 lakh in those days to reconstruct a very grand temple in Kashi. And from South India, you had the Hoysala ruler, Veera Narasimha III, who donated an entire village called Hebale to the people so that वहाँ से जो proceeds थे that could be used by the pilgrims to pay for the jizya tax that Hindus had to pay to go to their own तीर्थ स्थान to the Sultanate. And in his शिलालेख भी वो mention होता है कि ये पूरा गांव में दान में इसलिए देता हूँ ताकि इससे जो धन तीर्थयात्रियों को जाएगा जजिया पे करने के लिए, वो सारा धन जो है विश्वेश्वर के चरण कमलों में अर्पित है आज से. तो नॉर्थ, साउथ, ईस्ट, वेस्ट, एवरीबडी वाज सो इन्वेस्टेड इन द रिकंस्ट्रक्शन ऑफ काशी. सो बाय द एंड ऑफ द 12th century itself, दो 1194 में ये हुआ, by 1350 से पहले you had a grand temple which many people have attested. There is a Jain scholar, Jina Prabhu, who talks about it. There are so many others of that time who already talk about. There's an inscription which was later destroyed and put in the Lal Darwaza Mosque in Jaunpur by the Sharki Nawabs who came after that. So there were attempts to destroy temples by the Jaunpur Nawabs, by the Khiljis. But the biggest attack next happens in around 1496-97 by Sikandar Lodi, where entire Kashi, all the temples that were there were further destroyed and the entire city lay in ruins for almost 80-90 years. All the scholarship that was there, it was a seat of scholarship, Sanskrit scholarship. All the Brahmin scholars, they migrated away and most of them migrated to South India looking for safer pastures because यहाँ पे जान माल का पूरा नुकसान था. तो उस समय पे I think the others, while the kings may have shown whatever resilience, the common people, their resilience also becomes important. Where 4 Maharashtrian Brahmin families, मौनी, भट्टा, शेषा और धर्माधिकारी, ये लोग महाराष्ट्र से निकल के काशी आते हैं. You can imagine what odds they might have faced in the height of the Sultanate period, when every day you don't know when the acts of iconoclasm will hit you. ऐसे माहौल में, under extreme hostile situation, these people come and settle themselves in Kashi, and they start reviving the interest about the city. They start writing new literature. So Renaissance जैसे हुआ, I mean, in the West you had the Crusades, and the Crusades led to the era of Enlightenment and of Renaissance. So very similarly, it's almost here that the Renaissance in the literary aspects. So बहुत सारे जो परिशिष्ट थे of the Puran, काशी खंड of the स्कंद पुराण, काशी रहस्य of the ब्रह्म वैवर्त पुराण, वायु पुराण का एक परिशिष्ट था, आनंद कानन महात्म्यम, वो सारी चीज़ें इसी दौरान between the 12th and 14th centuries it started getting composed to recreate in the memories of people and the consciousness कि ये बहुत ही important एक नगरी है. And interestingly, those texts were also translated in other languages of India. South India में particularly, to make it popular, you had a kavi called Srinatha who 1440 में, most probably with the patronage of the Vijayanagar Empire, got it translated into Telugu. And Tenali Rama का जो son-in-law था, Rama कवि, उसने भी वायु पुराण का जो परिशिष्ट आनंद कानन महात्म्यम उसको तेलुगु में अनुवादित किया. So today in the ASI survey, when we found along with Sanskrit inscriptions in Tamil, Telugu, Kannada and other languages, that is further proof of the fact कि how important this place was, not only for North India and North Indians and so, but pan India. It was a pan Indian.
The entire nation was coming together.
They were all coming together from various, as I illustrated, east से बंगाल का राजा, गुजरात का businessman, महाराष्ट्र के Brahmins, होयसला राजा, Telugu poets. Everybody is contributing to a resurrection. और आज हम बोलते हैं भारत देश ही नहीं है, अंग्रेजों ने इसको एक नेशन बनाया. Who are all these people? They didn't think कि ये उत्तर प्रदेश का कुछ टेम्पल है, हमें क्या लेना देना, वहाँ तो भाषा भी कुछ अलग बोलते हैं. None of them thought that way. They all contributed, and that is what is a civilizational ethos. Your heart beats for a common, emotional connect. That is what I think this story also illustrates.
In fact, वही सेम चीज़ आई थिंक आफ्टर, क्योंकि मुगलों के टाइम पर भी एक बार आई थिंक इट बेटर कम्स फ्रॉम यू, क्योंकि मुगलों के टाइम पे, औरंगज़ेब के टाइम पे जब डेमोलिशन हुआ, उसके बाद जो रिकंस्ट्रक्शन करने की कोशिश की गई है, उसके अंदर ही पूरा देश इकट्ठा होता है.
बिल्कुल.
तो व्हाई डोंट यू टेल अस अबाउट वो औरंगज़ेब के टाइम पे, बिकॉज दैट इज़ अ वेरी क्रिटिकल एटलीस्ट जो लास्ट डिस्ट्रक्शन हुआ है इतना मैसिव काशी का, वो वही था, बिकॉज इट वाज रिकंस्ट्रक्टेड.
करेक्ट. सो आफ्टर सिकंदर लोधी, एज आई सेड, 80-90 साल तक पूरा काशी जो था इट वाज इन रूइंस. और उसी वक्त उन्हीं ब्राह्मण परिवार के बारे में जो मैंने बोला, महाराष्ट्र ब्राह्मण्स के, तो उन्हीं लोगों का एक बहुत ही इम्पॉर्टेंट मेंबर ऑफ दैट फैमिली, ऑफ द भट्ट फैमिली, called Narayan Bhatt. He was also called Jagat Guru because he was a great Sanskrit Pandit and people used to literally worship him for his scholarship. और उनके शिष्यों में प्रमुख थे राजा तोडरमल. And Todarmal had the patronage of Akbar, who I think among the Mughals was slightly more tolerant and accepting compared to the others. Not the best, but still better than the rest of them. So, using that political influence, Todarmal, with Narayan Bhatt's advice, establishes a grand Vishwanath Mandir around 1580, and that is an Ashtamandap temple, which later James Prinsep, in the 19th century, the British scholar, he makes a lithographic map. और आज जो न्यूज़ चैनल्स में सब लोग दिखाते रहते हैं that map whenever the Gyanvapi case comes up, that was the construction of Narayan Bhatt. So बीच में जहाँ आज वज़ू खाना है, that was where the गर्भगृह of Vishwanath was. और चारों तरफ there were 4 मंडप्स where different deities were there, द्वारपाल, गणेश, दंडपाणी, काल भैरव, ये सारे चीज़ वहाँ पे. A very grand Ashtamandap, a bigger Rangamandap that was there for performers, for Shastrarth to happen. तो ये मंदिर जो था 80-90 साल तक ही चला. But in that duration, there were lots of people who came and have given eyewitness accounts. All those travelers I mentioned, Peter Mundy ने designs, sketches भी दिए हैं जो मैंने किताब में डाले. How the women used to come and do abhishek. Tavernier ने बताया है, Niccolo Manucci. And they all also say that we were there a few years ago and shortly after our visit, Aurangzeb destroyed it. औरंगजेब से पहले शाहजहां had also tried to destroy मंदिर्स in काशी, but he was not successful. बट शाहजहां के टाइम पे एक अच्छी बात ये होती है कि आई मीन दारा शिको, who had tried his best to create bridges between the two communities, through his help there is the next scholar, important scholar after Narayan Bhatt was Kavindra Acharya Saraswati. तो वो जो हैं, by then the tax that people had to pay to visit temples was so oppressive that Hindus of Kashi had a lot of problems. So Kavindra Acharya ji goes to Agra और इतने impassioned वो speech वहाँ देते हैं कि all the courtiers are literally in tears, and Shahjahan finally वो माफ़ कर देता है कर्ज, and Kavindra Acharya comes back to Kashi to a hero's welcome. But it is very short-lived because barely few years later you had Aurangzeb destroy, starting from 1659, a year after he came to power, he destroys Krittivaseshwar temple first. Or there is a account that 1664 में he sent armies to defeat, I mean to destroy Kashi Vishwanath. But there are unverified records that the Naga sadhus of the Mahanirvani Akhada, they defeated Aurangzeb's armies in 1664, and that's again an exciting fact of history which we don't know much about. And these armed ascetics, the Gosais, the Naga sadhus, the various akhadas that were there, they kept the sword of Hinduism alive in the whole Indo-Gangetic belt. एंड बाद में जो सन्यासी रिबेलियन होता है, जिसके बारे में शायद बंकिम चंद्र चैटर्जी के अलावा बहुत कम लोग के बारे में बोलते भी हैं, आनंद मठ में जो है, दैट वाज अ सन्यासी रिबेलियन ऑफ द लेट 18th century. So these Naga sadhus are supposed to have defeated Aurangzeb's armies in 64, but 1669 में वो मासिर आलमगिरी, which is the contemporary chronicle of Aurangzeb, उसमें दर्ज है very clearly in April 1669, he sends a farman that all these evil places of learning and worship of the Brahmins, whether it is in Thatta, Multan, Banaras, इनको completely destroy कर देना चाहिए. And by September, within 4-5 months, the message is sent back to the emperor saying, as per your orders, everything has been destroyed, including the temple of Bishnath. So that is the September 1669 तक पूरा जो एरिया था वो ढह गया. But as you said, उसके बावजूद, even during the time of Aurangzeb, and he changed the very name of Kashi, I think he made it Mohammadabad or something, but it was only in his stupid farmans that this name stuck. Nobody, even now, nobody even knows that Kashi का दूसरा नाम Mohammadabad है. But there was, Varanasi, Banaras, Kashi, but this name of Mohammadabad never stuck in anybody's psyche or memory. But even then, though the Rajput kings, they were so subservient in some ways and so on, they छुप के जाके वो shrine की पूजा करते थे, because there are various stories, oral histories that maybe the शिवलिंग जो ज्योतिर्लिंग था उसको somehow the priest got to know that Aurangzeb is sending his armies, so रातों रात उसको वहाँ से निकाल के वो ज्ञान वापी का मतलब है कुआं, well of knowledge, तो वहाँ पे उसको it was hidden. So and then after this one goes, the Brahmins remove that, and in a hut they were worshipping this, and that is where the Maharana of Udaipur, Rewa ke Maharaja, Jaipur ke Rana, is all these people keep coming and doing worship, and a small shrine or something is built. उसका भी, and by then the Maratha साम्राज्य has come to the fore, and छत्रपति शिवाजी महाराज जिंदा थे जब काशी विश्वनाथ ढहा गया. और ये कहा जाता है कि his mother जीजाबाई was so enraged when this happened that she even tells him that if you are man enough, the goal of your life should be restoration of Vishwanath. And the oral history is on his deathbed, when Chhatrapati Shivaji is told that अभी आप प्रस्थान कर रहे हैं, आराम से जाइए. He said, मैं कैसे आराम से जा सकता हूँ, विश्वनाथ, Kashi Vishwanath is not liberated. That's supposed to be his last words. So that I think that was injected into the Maratha साम्राज्य कि किसी तरह हमारे सारे जो तीर्थ क्षेत्र हैं इनको वापस लेना है. And this is 17th century, 18th century we're talking of. So किताब में भी मैंने बाजीराव पेशवा का हो या नाना साहेब पेशवा के लेटर्स
सारे उद्धृत किए हैं, जहाँ पे कॉन्स्टेंटली वो नेगोशिएट कर रहे हैं, क्योंकि they did not have physical control over this entire Doab region. That was first under the Mughals, then it went to the Awadh. Nawab Shujauddaulah and others, and then the East India Company once Awadh started declining. So you have negotiations of the Marathas with everybody, right from Warren Hastings to even Lord Cornwallis. जब तीसरे मैसूर युद्ध में नाना फडणवीस हैज़ टू negotiate with Cornwallis to form a front alliance with Tipu Sultan against Tipu Sultan. So he puts this as one of the clauses to Cornwallis. He give us back these sacred spots. So you can imagine that this was constantly running in their psyche. और माधवराव पेशवा के विल में भी ये लिखा है, and he died at the age of 27 due to tuberculosis, and he came at a difficult time after the Panipat, third battle of Panipat, and to re-establish the Maratha supremacy. उसके बावजूद there are 3 clauses of his will which relate to Kashi, जिसमें one thing is he says this is the responsibility and duty of all my successors to ensure that Kashi is liberated. So you can imagine Shivaji Maharaj se leke all the Peshwas, how much it was a part of their psyche, as it was for the Rajputs, Ranas and so on of Rajasthan. And
that is what happened, जैसे अहिल्याबाई होलकर जी की कहानी.
तो उससे पहले उनके जो फादर इन लॉ थे मल्हर राव होलकर, he even sends an entire army to destroy the Gyanvapi Masjid. So but then the Brahmins of Kashi, they plead with him saying ऐसा मत कीजिए, अगर ऐसा हो जाएगा तो then you will destroy and go, then but we are under the control of the sultans, the Awadh Nawabs, and our lives will go in misery. So they abort the plan. But by then a lesser known fact which actually Dr. Uday Kulkarni told me about was 1755 mein the mandir was again destroyed. Even while Malhar Rao Holkar was making these attempts, a local Qazi actually went and destroyed the temple. वो over excited हो गया, he wanted to show that he was a very devout Muslim, and इस पे the whole city went in protest and flames. जो पेशवा के गुरु थे नारायण पाटनकर, दीक्षित पाटनकर, he went on a fast unto death, and the Peshwa himself had to come and plead with him saying mat karo, we will resurrect this temple somehow. So maybe those were the motivations which ensured that 1777 के आसपास it was Ahilyabai Holkar who built the shrine was already there. She built the Gopuram. It was certainly not as massive and grand as Narayan Bhatt's temple, but it was still there. Daulat Rao Sindhya's widow, she gets a chabutra constructed there, and later even Warren Hastings builds a Naubat Khana there to the Ahilyabai temple, and Maharaja Ranjit Singh gets it gold plated, the Shikhar. And this at a time when today we are talking of Sikh Hindus are different, Khalistan and all that. The greatest Sikh Maharaja Ranjit Singh has so much reverence for Kashi Vishwanath. So across the country, और मैंने ये भी लिखा, even South India, you have composers. One of the trinity of Carnatic music, Muthuswami Dikshitar, वो 8 साल काशी में रहते हैं अपने गुरु चिदम्बरनाथ स्वामी, जिनका आज भी वहाँ समाधि भी है हनुमान घाट के बिल्कुल तट पे. There is a Sri Chakralingeshwar where Dikshitar composed lots of compositions in Carnatic music, including on Vishweshwar. And Kerala में स्वाति तिरुनाल महाराजा in the 19th century, वो probably अपना पद्मनाभ स्वामी उस एरिया से कहीं बाहर गए ही नहीं थे. उसके बावजूद the consciousness of Kashi was there even in his mind. Among several of his bhajans, one very famous bhajan he composes is Vishweshwar darshan kar chalo man tum Kashi. So you see that same pan-Indian consciousness right from the 10th, 11th centuries, it continued up to the 19th century, and the Hindus of India, not just Kashi, Hindus all over Bharat never gave up on this site.
But why do you think, what happened ki consciously, of course this is very much in part of our oral histories, this was very much part of our civilizational tradition, कि ये कहानी पता था, ये किससे पता थी, बनारस और काशी की जो importance है, significance है, वो सबको पता थी. बट क्यों या ये कब हुआ कि सिविल ये पास ऑन होना है, इसके बारे में लिटरेचर लिखा जाना या हिस्ट्री में डॉक्यूमेंट होना, ये कैसे धीरे धीरे कम कैसे हुआ?
आई थिंक ये मोर ऑफ अ पोस्ट इंडिपेंडेंस बेन है, क्योंकि द प्लेस वॉज ऑलवेज अंडर कंटेस्टेशन. 1810 में यहाँ देवर ह्यूज राइट्स कॉल्ड द लाट भैरो राइट्स. और उसके बाद स्पेशली व्हेन अवध वेंट अंडर ब्रिटिश कंट्रोल, ब्रिटिश कोर्ट्स में एक के बाद एक केसेस दर्ज होते गए जो आई हैव डॉक्यूमेंटेड इन डिटेल इन द बुक. And also there was a case pre-independence called Deen Mohammed versus the state, which was an important case. So pre-independence it was always there. I think somewhere post-independence and this whole Nehruvian Marxist consensus that came about in the way we look at our past, in the way we look at our history, our religion, our everything, धीरे धीरे वो that the memories somewhere started going dimmer, which I think now it is somehow thankfully being revived, and that is what is a civilizational reawakening that we are seeing today.
And because we are talking about civilization reawakening and we are talking about how history post independence जो history लिखी गई थी was under the influence of Nehruvian Marxian consensus. I think years and decades later, we will mark 2014 as an important inflection point in civilizational history of the country. I'd argue कि 2014 के बाद इस तरह की history writing या nationalist narratives दोबारा लिखे जाने लगे. What do you think? How important was 2014? और उसके बाद कोई significant change आया? Because you were active उससे पहले भी in the writing and literature, history writing circles.
True, I think any art, culture, literature thrives in a favorable political climate. If you are going to write in such an atmosphere where you don't know when you'll be attacked, when your book will be banned, when you'll be put in jail, then obviously the people also don't express themselves freely. I keep mentioning how even Savarkar, Veer Savarkar, the way he was thrown into the dustbin of history literally. उनकी कविताएं हृदयनाथ मंगेशकर जी ने सिर्फ ट्यून किया, उसके लिए ही लॉस्ट हिज जॉब इन ऑल इंडिया रेडियो. एंड वी से नाउ देयर इज इंटॉलरेंस इन दिस कंट्री. व्हाट इज दैट? फ्रीडम ऑफ एक्सप्रेशन थोड़ी ही था. सो ऑब्वियसली बिफोर दैट देयर वाज द नेशनलिस्ट स्कूल ऑफ हिस्टोरियोग्राफी, आई थिंक ह्यूजली सफर्ड. But now there is thankfully a resurgence. There are a lot of people, there are young people who are writing and reading. There's an awakening which I think has gone beyond politics. To equate the civilizational awakening and the awareness that is coming in younger generation to just some political agenda or one leader or one party ideology, I think that will be very missing the woods for the trees. Because राम मंदिर के प्रतिष्ठान में भी हमने देखा कि common Indians across India, they had nothing to do with any political this thing. In resident societies, Ram Katha ho, Hanuman Chalisa ho, so many things. People were putting lamps outside their home and celebrating a second Diwali for the recoming of Ram back after the exile. तो उसका politics से कोई संबंध तो है ही नहीं. So to dub all of that as some bigoted Sanghi agenda and all that is I mean our opponents can do that very well because that is to their detriment and to our advantage, which is good. But I think this is a larger picture now which has gone far beyond politics, and which is the good part. That should come bottom up rather than top down, where it should come from the grassroots, this awakening. And of course the roots of that were in the Ayodhya movement, and huge kudos to the entire Sangh Parivar for actually for the first time to create that awareness in a sleeping Hindu society that this is important. To 1990s में जो Rath Yatra that Advani ji and the VHP and others started, I think that catapulted the seeds of today. What we see were certainly sown at that time, and there is a gradual culmination since then, which obviously paid political dividends to a particular party, the BJP, from 2 to 200 to now 303. It's been a journey even on the political front. I'm not so much interested in the politics of it. For me, I'm looking at it as a historian looking at the social and the cultural impact of this, as to how that has impacted our understanding itself as Hindus. And all through the Nehruvian era, I think the very fact that every other community could wear its identity on its sleeve, and that was not threatening to anybody else, but only the Hindus were asked to tone down. you should feel constantly apologetic about yourself. You should feel so ashamed. All the time you're talking only of the negatives in your society, whereas there are negatives in every society. So यहाँ पे only caste oppression, division, these things you talk about, but all the positives you gloss over. And to say that you're a Hindu also is somehow going to make someone else uncomfortable, which I think now is changing. You're not going to be aggressive, you're not going to be the attacker or something, but
we could be assertive.
We could be proud of our own identity. For the first time, people are saying, I'm proud to be a Hindu, and that doesn't make me a violent man who's going to attack someone else or something. For self-defense, for organization, there's nothing wrong. Self-protection is the common tenet of all human beings across the world, so why should the Hindus give it up? So I think that is what is a change that we see now in society, which is for the good.
Lovely. On that note, I think it's perhaps time to bring it to close. I recommend, I have read a major portion of the book, and I recommend it to all the viewers and the readers. Anybody who hears us on the podcast or people who watch this show. The title of the book is Waiting for Shiva, Unearthing the Truth of Kashi's Gyanvapi, published by Inc., authored by Vikram Sampath. Congratulations, Vikram, and thank you for being on the show.
Thank you, Arjun. Great pleasure talking to you in this new avatar of yours.
Thank you very much. Namaskar.